Hey, I'm Robbie Samuels. It's super exciting to welcome you all here. I am the membership director for NSA Philadelphia. NSA is the National Speakers Association. If you're not familiar, we're the ones who speak. The other NSA, that's the ones listening in right now. All right. Glad you're here. This is a dual program that is brought to you with NSA Philadelphia and NSA New York City, which is a very exciting endeavor. It's one of our first virtual programs for our chapter, and we're planning to do lots more of them. I want to let you know that some of you might be wondering if this session is for you, and I want to assure you that wherever you are in your journey as a speaker, yes. The answer is yes, it is for you. We've got stuff for seasoned pros to learn how to amp their game up a little bit. We've got stuff for those newbies who are still trying to figure out what questions to ask. We have information for you to share with your colleagues, and the replay will be available, though I do recommend you take some actionable notes so you know you can act on them and implement some of these strategies in your business. There will be a mix of fireside chats, a panel discussion, and a brief presentation. So we're bringing you all kinds of formats to make sure you get to interact with some of the leaders in the field. I want to give a shout out to Nicole Anderson behind the scenes. She's really pulled together a really fabulous group of people. I'm really excited that you're going to get a chance to learn more about them. So without any further delay, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping and then I'm going to pass things over. So the first housekeeping is if you need captions, you can turn them on by clicking on the CC button, and then the captions will appear across the bottom of your screen. If you have a question, please write it in chat, but do us a favor and write the word question in all caps before your question in chat so I can spot it. Most questions we're going to hold until the end. But if it's a clarifying question, like what does the acronym NSA stand for, and we didn't address it, we will do so by when we spot that. I'll make sure to weave that in. But do pose your questions. We want to make this interactive in that sense. But please stay muted. We're going to make sure the focus is on the panel and speakers that we've invited in here. That said, we do encourage you to have your cameras on. It makes us more interesting as presenters if we are not presenting to a blank wall, a brick wall. It's helpful to know that there's an audience on the other side of this. So we encourage that. Emojis are a great way to share your appreciation. Someone drops a truth bomb that makes you go, "What?" I want you to go to the emojis. I want you to just drop some of them in either into chat or on the screen like Kate just did. So speaking of which, I want to let you know that I have some help with the moderation and facilitation of tonight's program from the president of the NSA Philadelphia chapter, Christina Butler, and the president of the New York City chapter, Caitlin Donovan. So you'll be hearing from both of them in just a bit. In fact, first, I'm going to turn things over to Christina, who's going to kick things off with our first fireside chat. Christina, welcome.
Okay, thank you, Robbie. And thank you, Robbie, for everything that you have done behind the scenes to pull this together. Thank you. We love you. We also love Nicole Anderson, who is our first guest and our first fireside chatter this evening. Nicole Anderson is not only an awesome human being, she is a trailblazing entrepreneur and CEO of NAL Speakers, a fast-growing global platform helping thought leaders increase visibility and access bigger stages. Her work focuses on leadership, impact, and amplifying diverse voices across the speaking industry. Tonight, she is here to verify or debunk statements we speakers hear or make about agents and bureaus. She's going to give it to us straight. Hi, Nicole.
Hey, Christina, good to see you. Thanks for having me today.
Yes, thank you again for being here. I will share a statement, and then Nicole, you offer your expertise, perspective, and insight. So let's jump right in with number one. And this comes up all the time. A lot of speakers think a bureau is like a fast pass, it's a miracle to instant booking. So, how true is that really?
I get this question all the time. When I meet speakers or they come up to me, they say, Nicole, I really want to speak more. I want to get out there more. And what I have to explain to folks most of the time is we amplify what you're already doing. So, we don't have instant bookings for everybody, but if you have a great brand, you have a clear message and your positioning is great, then we can place you, potentially, but the speaker is the one that's getting the work done in order to brand themselves and get themselves out there. It's not an instant thing. We have bureau relationships with companies and organizations that call us for very specific things. And if there's something that is specific to a speaker, yeah, of course, we can pitch them, we can put them out there, but it's not our job to make that happen for them. It's really for us to continue to do what they're already doing in the marketplace.
Okay, we knew you were going to be straight with us, so thank you. Another common assumption we hear is once I'm with the bureau, they handle the marketing. So, how does that actually work in real life?
Well, here's the thing to think about with bureaus and speakers. The bureau is actually a business, and our goal is to brand the business and, of course, bring opportunities to our speakers. So that's what we do. We sell the opportunities, but we don't build your brand. We may open doors and, like I said, pitch you for some of the right opportunities, but advocating for yourself behind the scenes is the big deal. Folks who I see that are doing very well, whether they're with a bureau or not, understand that they need to be visible, they need to put out content, they need to be credible, and they really need to put that information out on a consistent basis. LinkedIn is actually a great place to do the marketing, but if you look at any of the bureau content, you're going to see them pitching and sharing information about a multitude of things, and also positioning ourselves as a thought leader in this space so that we can be a great partner, for organizations. So, we don't do the marketing for you, but we can certainly market some of your materials as a part of our marketing campaign. So hopefully that makes sense to folks.
That does. Thank you. Yes. And if we shift gears and we talk fees for a moment, there's this belief that if you're exclusive, your fees automatically go up. We hear that sometimes. What's
Mhm.
myth versus reality there when it comes to exclusive?
Just because you're exclusive doesn't mean that you have a high fee. What it means is you and the bureau have a relationship where they can book you for everything. So if another bureau is calling you, or if other organizations are calling you, they're calling that bureau so that they can book you. However, you can be a $10,000 speaker, you can be a $5,000 speaker, you can be a $100,000 speaker. What gets your fee up is the value that you're bringing to the marketplace. So that doesn't mean that, exclusivity can do that. But what it does mean is that you have a clear message and that you can raise your fees based on the demand that is happening to you, as well as some of the outcomes that repeated clients want to see you with. So that doesn't mean that you have to have a high fee if you sign with a bureau.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying that one. And I'll say up front, this one might ruffle a few feathers. You hinted at it before when you mentioned, being the whole package, but if you're great on stage, is that enough? Or are there other factors that bureaus and agents care about just as much?
Relationships matter. I
Mhm.
remember having a conversation a couple of weeks ago. I finally met the great Tony D'Amelio, and he said he's been in this industry for a long time, and he is one of the folks that I look to see what's working and what's not working. And one of the things that he said to me that was pretty crystal clear was that even before social media, even before all the things that speakers have today to market themselves, the main thing that works for speakers is the relationships when they are in the room at that speaking event. They are connecting with the audience. They are connecting with the organizers and so on and so forth. And so if their message is clear, if it's relevant to the audience, and if they are a great speaker, they can get an applause. But the speaker needs to be strategic in how they manage those relationships and so on and so forth at the day of the event. Everything matters while you're there. So that's where if you're great on stage, the rest does matter, is the point of that.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. And I think we'll hear that term relationship both with the audience and with your partners quite a bit tonight. Something else we hear a lot, Nicole, and this is our last question for you right now. We hear this a lot, especially from newer speakers, and it's this, can you please put this to rest once and for all? Bureaus only want me once I don't need them anymore. Is that fair?
Yes and no. When I'm speaking to speakers, I tell them you have to already be bookable for me to book you. Because if you're not Oprah Winfrey, if you're not, Brené Brown, what matters, and Krista has said this over and over again, and she might cover it later on, is that your materials matter when you're out there. And the bureaus have to rely on that material in order to prove that you are valuable to our partners and valuable to, our clients. So it's not about rejection, adding folks to the bureau. It's really about making sure that the speakers are ready and that they are marketable so that we can get your name out there. if you're getting booking, that means that you're validated. You belong in this market. You're visible, and people love what you're doing. And so, if they're already loving what you're doing, we can also again help amplify that. And so, smart speakers use that to build their leverage and not, be resentful about that. So that's a big one that I want people to really understand. It's not that we don't need you or you don't need us, but we need each other in order to build, a great speaking relationship with the clients.
We need each other. I love that. Beautifully put. Nicole, thank you for doing so much to put this together and for answering those questions for us.
Thank
We
you.
do have a lot to get into tonight. So, Nicole, thank you. And now let's bring in Krista Haberstock. She is the founder of C Agency and Bookable Speakers and the author of Become a Bookable Speaker. She's also the creator of The Obvious Advantage, a framework that helps speakers uncover the standout strengths they often miss even in themselves. Tonight, Krista is here to talk about what's changed in the speaking industry and what speakers need to do and understand now when it comes to agents and bureaus. Welcome, Krista.
Hi. I see a couple familiar faces too. Shout out to Tammy Evans and Frank King. It's been a long time. Good to see you guys. Hi. Well, I guess I will just go. So I thought you were going to talk. I thought we were going to have a nice little conversation.
We can keep talking, but Nicole, they want to hear, or I'm sorry,
Throw
Krista,
up
they
your,
want to hear
fill up
from
your
you.
slides. Yeah, let's hear about it.
They want to
Wow,
hear
an
from you.
pause
I know.
already. That's fine. No, I just wanted to let it breathe, like really dramatic pause, like speakers do, right? So it just all set in for you. All right. So I feel like a bit of a mad scientist over here. Just they let me out of the laboratory every once in a while to like release my findings, and so I've got some really cool stuff that I'm excited to share with you tonight. I think I have 10 whole minutes, and the best way for me to stay on track is to give myself pictures to go by. So I'm going to share my screen, second row, sharing it right now. Everybody say a little prayer. Is it working?
Perfect.
Hallelujah. Okay, fantastic. All right, so the mad scientist over here cannot help but look into what's happening in 2026. The reason I'm a mad scientist is on behalf of my roster. I've had a roster of speakers since 2009 when I founded C Agency. And it's the bookings that come in for the speakers that I represent are in large part due to the work that the speakers do and the quality work that I do with them and for them. So if I don't know how the industry ticks, if I don't know where it's going, then they don't get bookings and I don't get paid. So as much of a charity mission as this looks like, this is very important to the survival of any kind of speaker management agency, which is what C Agency is. So I'm not a speakers bureau. So there are differences there, but we can go into that later because I only have 10 minutes. Okay, and I already end up like 12 seconds with awkward silence. So this, what I'm calling 2026 is the year of the clear. And this is what it's going to take to maximize impact with clarity, confidence, and strategy. So let's all pray that it advances. And if it doesn't, I'm going to just read it from my piece of paper. There we go. Bookability. Now, bookability is a word. I would love to say that I coined it, and I think I did. Anytime I ask the robots, who coined this phrase? Well, I use it the most. I think it's been around for a long, long time in the entertainment industry, but it is truly just your ability to get booked on the regular. So when I started C Agency in 2009, some of the best speakers that I worked with came to me with sometimes no brand or a subpar brand or something that was creating white noise. And what I would do was make them more bookable by clearing their barriers to bookings. And without exception, there was hockey stick growth with their business. And that used to be enough of a differentiator. In the year 2000, there were approximately 20,000 speakers, 22,000 speakers. Here we are in 2025. There's north of 45,000 speakers in the market. So things have definitely changed, and bookability is not enough to get booked on the regular because of the competition and because of other factors we'll go into. So bookability is your baseline. The market's moving fast. When I released, and I put this up there, not too self-promotional, but what prompted me to write my book last year, I released it 14 months ago. I just wanted to try and answer every question every speaker had ever asked me. And it felt like they all fell into pretty much the same buckets, and I could really write the book with confidence. And so October of last year, I released this book, and I already feel like it needs a follow-up. It needs an addendum. That's how fast things are changing. I feel like there are parts of the industry that are brand new or just magnified. We'll get into that as well. So this is something that I actually have had for years and years. This is my speaker booking life cycle. I used to call it the circle of life, but it was a little too Lion King, so I backed off that. So this is the natural progression of the speaker booking. You'll see that when you speak well, there's buzz, and the buzz creates clients to search you. And then once they search you, they go, well, let's take a look at their video. Let's take a look at their topics. Let's take a look at testimonials. Let's ask around. Let's do all the social proof that we need. Everything that goes into vetting that speaker. Then it goes, of course, into the inquiry where they say, okay, I need to know your fee and your availability because you seem like a great fit. Then it goes to decision. Then you hit the stage and you smoke a hole in it and it's great. And then there's buzz about you and around it goes. So this is pretty much evergreen. This is the circle of life. So what I've seen is that in the last handful of years, we have seen a big change. The circle of life in the early 2000s was buzz and then inquiry and then search because Google was unreliable at best. You didn't know what you were getting, very, very reminiscent of the AI that we're in right now. So there was buzz, and then they call a bureau and get the information on them, or they would search them out on Google, or they would just find them some other way. Search, vet decision, book success, buzz. Here we go again. The DIY era in it was the mid 2010s. Depending on what you look at, like Canva came around. There was, like the advent of the iPhone with the camera. You can do so much on your own camera on your phone. A lot of speakers just turned away from hiring the professionals, and that was a huge barrier financially and time-wise. So speakers couldn't put out a new reel every 6 to 12 months. They would last for 5 years. And so the website, now you can build your own website. So things really amped up in the mid 2010s. And so the inquiry started coming in after the vetting. And I'll tell you why that was, because planners could also search much more efficiently. And there were a lot more materials available in the market to actually look at. So online, you could look at them on Wikipedia. You could do a lot more with them. Maybe you could look at their MySpace. That's a little later. But their Facebook, their social media. And the vetting was a lot more digital. And so the inquiry would come after they had a more, I would say, complete comfort level based on the digital impression that you had. And that was all of your marketing assets. I'll say that when I was really working hard on C Agency with the speakers, of course, 2009, I started launching some pretty big speakers. And that was, it was between buzz and search and then search and vet. So it was around that time that I started really ramping up with my speakers on bookability because online bookability, because if you don't have the best assets. So as I wrote my book last year, I had that framework of bookability being enough. And then, they would come to me after they were vetted and pretty much sold. And I felt like I was kind of running into the end zone, catching the ball, and then I'd get to book the deal. We had some interesting years to follow, didn't we? So technology really ramped up. And I know this is going to seem odd to have the inquiry come in after the decision, but my friends, your mad scientist over here thinks that's where we are. The calls that we're getting as a speaker management agency, the calls that I get even from speakers bureaus a lot is so-and-so available for this date? I have a firm offer. It goes immediately from inquiry to firm offer because most of the decision has been made before you even get the inquiry. In fact, committees have grown from 1 to 2 people to like 4 to 6 on average now. And these are all verifiable stats from studies. I'm not just, making it up from conjecture from my experience. This is MPI, PCMA, SCIFT meetings. It's a whole bunch if you want to know more. So you're getting the inquiry after the decision. So that means that the decision-making process has moved online, and that takes us completely out of the driver's seat. You are now on a job interview that you are not allowed to attend until they offer you the job. That should get your attention and not scare you, but wake you up to the fact that if you think getting on the phone with the client will sell them, you may not have that opportunity anymore. So what drives buyer behavior in 2026? You have to communicate this in all your materials. And again, in your digital footprint, everything that you do online has to convey convenience, clarity, and confidence. I had, again, bookability being the big door number one for me, and evergreen. It will never go away. But I'm going to tell you now that the two, if not as important, almost as important doors are visibility and referability. Visibility would be your online everything. So how searchable are you on LinkedIn? What kind of content are you putting out there on LinkedIn? LinkedIn has something called 360 Brew that you definitely need to look into if you're LinkedIn active, which I really hope you are. Because the moment that your topic or name or anything goes into AI or SEO, LinkedIn is one of the first search results, and AI is actually above it now. So keeping up with your online visibility is critical, and what people can see about you through videos and content and a library of content, I would say video content. So if you don't stand out where buyers are already looking, unfortunately, you're invisible. And this is listing everywhere. I mean, this is listing, of course, keeping up, yes, on Instagram. Keeping up, I would say Facebook is not as important, but I would say that YouTube is critically important, and everything you show them is going to say something about your brand. You want to make sure that it looks current, credible, and builds confidence. Your bookability, as we talked about before, the biggest barrier to you being bookable is fear. So everything that you put together for them to see online or anywhere, really it's online is where we shop now. So it's got to instill confidence and reduce fear. So if there's any kind of fear, I call it brand white noise. So if your brand is at all confusing, that creates a little bit of hesitation, and then it slows down the decision. They go, well, what else is there out there? Oh, 44,999 other speakers is what it is. Not to be too exact on the math. Referability, the biggest barrier is a forgettable speech. Your stagecraft is and always will be your best marketing tool. North of 85% of all speaker bookings, leads, everything that comes in is via word of mouth. And it's just a side note, I'm going to get a big amen from my other panelists here, but when you hear somebody say, well, I don't even need a new booking, I get all my bookings from word of mouth. Well, they don't know how many they're losing, because the word of mouth, their name goes to another person and that person vets them. And if there isn't something out there that builds their credibility, they're losing bookings they never knew they had in the first place. So the online credibility is huge when it comes to referability, because that is your lead engine. That's your biz dev. This research is in support of my work with C Agency, which is my speaker management agency. We have, usually between 10 and 12 speakers at any time. That's plenty of mouths to feed for one or two people. It's a lot of work. My speaker therapy, which I started as tongue-in-cheek and realized it is not at all tongue-in-cheek. It is very, very direct therapy with you people. This is a very stressful job and you need a lot of support. And so do we. And then Bookable Speakers, which is the education program that I've been putting on for a few years. And if you look really close, you'll see some familiar faces in there. And it happens 3-4 times a year, and it's like a mastermind group. So the reason that I am this mad scientist with an info dump is because I'm supporting those 3 brands with all of this. So I want to go in the final home stretch here on the 3 things I want you to focus on right now. It's a do this today column, or maybe do this tomorrow. Clarity. Make sure that your brand is clear. That's why I call it year of the clear. Everything that you do has to be crystal clear. What problem do you solve? And notice that singular, not multiple. This is not problems do you solve, it is problem. For whom and in what moment in their organizational arc? What problem do you solve? I will tell you, niches is riches, or for the Canadians, niches is riches, I guess. But niches is riches. And if you can drill down as far as possible, leadership is not a good enough topic anymore. Even leadership with hearts. It doesn't say anything. It has to solve a problem. So if you can't say it clearly, buyers cannot understand it to choose you. Convenience, I can move fast. I actually scrubbed my whole website. I dumped a phone number. I had two phone numbers, one that people could call and one that people could text. I got rid of the one that people can call, and now they can text me at any time of the day or night. Super fun. Use it. Um, yes, and yes, I get a lot of spam calls. What I'm saying is that it has to be very, very easy. And if there is some data that says if you don't respond in 5 minutes, you lose the deal. Not to put fear in you, but that is the data. So is choosing you quick and effortless? Is all the proof that they need to book you? Is it on your website? I will say something pretty controversial right now, but for us old timers, listing fees on our website is just the biggest no-no. And I think I've been proven wrong. So I've listed fees for my speakers on my website because it is not quick and it is painful to have to pick up the phone for people or even to email. It slows them down and there's too much competition. So they want to know, are you even in range? So that's a point for discussion. So if choosing you feels hard, buyers hesitate and hesitation kills momentum. And the last one, I want you to do this now, is confidence. Make sure that every choice that the planner makes is a safe one. So the safe bet has lots of testimonials, has lots of footage of you on stage. They have vetted you, super vetted you, over vetted you, mega vetted you. They can point back and say, I have so much confidence in this person that so and so referred to me. Or actually 54% of all buyers are going to ChatGPT now, to AI, to look for their speakers. So if you're going to be the first one to pop up, then make sure that you bring a compelling case to them. So buyers gain confidence from proof, familiarity, and trust. So you will drive 26 bookings through clarity, convenience, and confidence. So I hope this is your year of the clear. And I'm sure that was over 10 minutes, but I hope it was helpful.
That was super, super, super helpful, Krista. Thank you so much. I have some things that I have to implement, so I know that the rest of the room does too. We are so grateful for you, and there's some questions in the chat for you that we will get to later. And now we're going to open up our panel, which I'm so excited about. Today we have two panelists with me. The first one is Amy Taylor, who is a speaker management agent and owner of Loud Management, a modern representation agency partnering with today's most influential voices. With over 17 years of experience in speaker strategy, media, and brand development, Amy has worked behind the scenes with thought leaders, authors, and global brands to shape powerful messages and build lasting visibility. Before launching Loud, Amy led speaker and talent strategy at Success Magazine, collaborating with high-impact leaders to grow their platforms. She's passionate about helping voices with substance break through, stand out, and stay relevant in a fast-moving industry. And panel, thank you for coming, Amy. Panelist number 2, we have Mirjana Novkovic, is the founder of Speaker Story Brand, a boutique firm that helps speakers build momentum through market positioning and strong industry relationships. I'm losing my R's, folks. It's late and I'm from Boston. Get over it. With more than 2 decades in the speaking industry, including 16 years at the Harry Walker Agency, Mirjana operates in a management-adjacent role, helping speakers align their message with market demand and navigate the speaker bureau ecosystem with intention and care. She's here to talk about realistic fees and speakers she recommends following. And also, if you are not following Mirjana on LinkedIn, you are missing out on some serious speaker intel. Go do it now. Let's go, Pats! Sorry, that was inappropriate. Mirjana, thank you so much for being here as well. We're going to start with you, if that's okay.
All right, then.
I have 6 questions all at once, but I can reiterate them for you as we go.
Okay, go.
How are speaker-agent relationships formed? Should a speaker be cold emailing you? Should they wait to be discovered? What's the best practice?
Okay, so for everyone, no matter what level you're at, get curious. Get curious about the bureaus that you have interest in. Get curious about agents within bureaus. It used to be that people are like, I want a bureau to sign me. Well, it's not about a bureau. It's not about a company. As we know, people work with people. You need to know the people. Now it's gotten harder because it used to be that a lot of the websites would have all of the the agents listed. And now you have many that do, but you also have many that don't. I still think in this world, they definitely like having agents listed is so helpful. I mean, this is a relationship business all around, whether it's buyers who want to get to the bureaus and their agents or the speakers. But no matter what level you're at, get curious. So lean into your communities, lean into NSA, lean into your speaker colleagues. Some might already know great bureaus, great agents. They could give you some intel. There are a lot of great agencies, like ours and others who know and have these relationships. And if you're at the right spot to be introduced to them, those doors can open in that way. But if you're not ready for an agent to really work with you, there's still an opportunity for you. If you get to know them, you follow them, if they're posting, get to know what they like, what they don't like, different things. You could start, doing that sleuthing on your own. It's really important because you could also then reach out, even if you're a newbie, you can reach out potentially to an agent and say, I'd love to just learn from you. I have a few questions. Would you mind? And I will share this story from a top 5 bureau, like big bureau, legacy agent in the industry who, just a few months ago shared with me that she's like, you'd be surprised how many people don't pick up the phone and do what I say. I say, sometimes pick up the phone, give a call, try to call me. Maybe I'll pick up, maybe I won't, maybe I'll be able to help you, maybe I won't. And she said that one day someone out of the blue called her, a speaker, who was not quite ready for that stage, but she had time that morning and she wanted to be helpful and she was able to, and now this is a connection. And she said, it's amazing how many people still won't do things like that. So you have to do what you can do for your appetite and all of that. But I will say this idea, I've started doing something recently called a listening tour. And I'll even, I have to reach out to agents all the time too. And they're my colleagues, but they're busy and this market is saturated. And sometimes they don't want to hear from me either. But I'll say, now recently I've been saying, I'm working with a new speaker. We just want to share with you our vision and we want to hear back what you're thinking. What are the challenges and opportunities that you see for us? And it just flips it. It takes them off edge. I'm not here to pitch this speaker to you and I'm not expecting you to do much with them right now. And I think that's what any individual can do. So I think and then I'm just thinking for the seasoned, one thing I'll say for seasoned speakers who already might be working with bureaus and you want to form deeper relationships, I think, everything is about intentionality and strategy. So right now, what I'm sharing with seasoned speakers is, really start thinking about those deeper partnerships. Think about those top 2, 3 agents that you could do something in a more intentional way. Maybe you do something on LinkedIn together. Maybe you find a way. So there are a lot of opportunities to sort of discover that.
If I had to wrap that up in one word, and you let me know if you agree with this or not, I would say relationships.
That's it. Yeah, you got to just find a way to. It's nuanced and it's just different for everybody, and you have to lean into your strengths about it.
Yeah, and you have to be real about it. I want to remind everybody that when you are on the other side, so when you're the agent or when you're the host of a podcast or when you're the booker, you know when somebody is trying to get to know you for their benefit. You can feel it. So be real. Like, just be remember that we're all human here, folks. That's how we build relationships. Amy, I'm going to move on to you. What should realistic expectations be once there is a relationship or a partnership? Should the speaker still do their own outreach? How does this work if we're talking about exclusive and not exclusive relationship? It seems like when you're a new speaker, I've only been in the speaking world for 6 years, and this question I wouldn't have even understood.
Right. I was going to say, first of all, there's a lot to unpack just from understanding what all these words mean, right?
Exactly.
And to Krista's point, I'm also on the management side, meaning I have 9 speakers that I exclusively manage. We, of course, partner with bureaus, work with bureaus, but we don't book off of our roster. So that's a much different model than being a non-exclusive, with a bureau. And representation of any kind doesn't absolve you, the speaker, of effort. You still have to be out there actively, building your brand and your reputation. That's the exact definition of a partnership. It's not just a handoff. Oh, I'm done. It's a true partnership. And I think one of the most important things that I try to drive home for speakers is that, and this just echoes everything that Krista said in her presentation about clarity and building your brand. It's really the reputation formula. And this is not my original idea, but I share it with speakers all the time because I saw Krista dropped in the chat about us being in a trust recession. And how can we build that trust without ever speaking to anyone or getting to control the way that people are, absorbing our marketing materials? And so that's results times reach equals your reputation. So results meaning what is the problem you solve? What is it only you can do? What is that transformation that you bring to the stage? And then your reach is your network. And that doesn't have to mean social media network. It could, but it could also mean your phone. What contacts do you have in your phone? Who are you connected to on LinkedIn? Who do you go to networking events with? Who do you have virtual coffee with? We all have it. And I think speakers can get really bogged down in this day and age on social media, thinking that, well, we have to be influencers to have influence. And that's absolutely not true. You can have just as much influence with an engaged list of 1,000 contacts than you can with 10,000 followers who are not engaged, right? And then that's your reputation. And that is how you show up. And that is how you build a business, by establishing that reputation. So I would encourage speakers to remember that no bureau, no manager, no coach can establish that for you. You have to do it yourself. And that takes proactivity and dedication every single day. And I will share one quick story that I actually recently just offboarded 4 speakers from my roster. And I love them dearly, but they were not being good partners and they were not managing their reputations to go to the next level. And we're going to talk about fees here in a bit. They were wanting to increase fees or questioning why they weren't getting full fees and just not having aligned expectations. And it was in direct result of their lack of effort, because as a manager, I can put out all the activity on your behalf, but if you're not doing the same thing, then we don't have a partnership.
So this is not on the list of questions, but can we talk about a little bit more like what those 4 people were actually doing wrong? Because I think there are a lot of people that think at some point I'm going to get an agent or I'm going to work with a bureau and I'm just going to hand everything over and then I'm just going to sit back and wait.
I'll just put their names in the chat. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love them all. No, but I think a lot of times, when we're talking about expectations, your bookings and your speaking business is going to be directly related to how much effort you are putting into your speaking business. So if you're over here trying to be an influencer, or maybe you're trying to be a coach, or you're trying to, I don't know, do a wellness program or something where you're straddling the line of like, what is your offer? So somebody goes to your website and it's like, well, are you a speaker? Are you an influencer? Are you a coach? And a lot of times speakers are coaches, but you have to be really clear about that on your website, and where you're driving traffic to create opportunity for speaking has to be about speaking. And then when I go to your social media and it's you, maybe being in a play, or it's you like doing a arts and crafts camp for kids and it's not your speaking, and then you want me to pay you $20,000, it just doesn't compute. And so all of the marketing dollars and efforts that we were doing as a management agency were not being appreciated, nor were they being implemented and reflected, on those speakers, marketing channels. So that just is kind of like us spinning our wheels. And I think attitude and ego, we've all seen it. So I think you have to leave it at the door. And I am an expert at what I do. And I expect like the same respect from my speakers. And I will partner for them all day long. I will go to bat for them all day long, but they have to do the same.
So I had somebody recently ask me on a sales call, are you one of those people that needs like all green M&Ms?
Oh, me?
No. Somebody asked me that question on a sales
like
call
on your
recently.
rider. Yeah.
And I was like,
everybody wants to know like what's the craziest thing you've seen on like a speaker rider. And like, luckily, nothing too crazy. But yes, like a little humility and like gratitude for, I mean, like Krista said, we're also running a business.
Yeah.
And so I think having a little gratitude for like all of the work that we put in to make our speakers successful goes a long way.
A little gratitude, and I think also recognition for the event planners, folks. Can
Absolutely.
we love on our event planners, please?
Yes.
Because they are working, that is always, as a burnout expert, Event planner is always on the top 5 list of most stressful jobs in the world.
Yep.
And you're sitting here being like, well, I'm just going to show up and do my thing and then leave. Like, no, you better be moving chairs and picking up water glasses when it's time. Like, do your work, honey. So yes, to appreciating our bureaus, appreciating our agents, appreciating our event managers. Like, this is not a good diva business. Get humble, work hard, stay hungry. All right, Mirjana, we're going to come back to you.
All right.
What are realistic, this is, actually, I don't think this is a good question, but I'm going to read it as it's written. What are realistic fee bands right now for associations, corporations, and virtual?
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, this is, again, it varies depending on where you sit as a speaker, right? And I actually I don't do very specific work I always, work with my speakers in terms of where their level's at, and we look at where are we coming into the market and where are we growing from there. But, associations, we know can have, starting ranges lower than 7,500, but 7,500 to that 15,000, we know is the sweet spot. And of course, corporations, we know are anywhere 15K and upwards. You could always have lower, but there's that. So really, I mean, the bureau agents, and I don't know, to call Zach out there too. He might have a little bit more insight into some of that piece of it. But I think, again, if you're a newer speaker, just starting, you have to start at that base level, which, when I'm working with speakers, it's usually around that 7,500 start base. And then anywhere between that 15 to 25 is sort of a sweet spot.
There's some people in the room that just went 7,500 is the start.
Well, there are obviously again, it depends that's kind of the space that I play in, right?
Yeah.
So but of course, if you're starting out and if you're talking about 1,500, 2,000, I mean, there are obviously so many places for that. And those are just, you have to go out and make those calls and meet those people, make those connections.
Yeah. What do you know about commissions for agents?
Yeah, well, I mean, I love the commission conversation because it's varied so much. So when I was with the bureau, the commission, was standard 20%. If you're co-brokering, you're splitting that 20. Now we know if you're a non-exclusive speaker, 25% is sort of the standard. There are some agencies that look for 30%. And of course, we have those conversations with speakers all the time that'll say things like, well, is it worth it? I mean, that's a lot. And I say to speakers, I've worked with some speakers who will give 25% commission as a non-exclusive speaker, plus, give an extra commission if they're working with a different kind of an agency like mine or something, and say, having a bureau, having someone from a management side, helping my brand, it's all worth it. I've had speakers who've given 35% of their piece of their pie to grow and build. It really depends on that partnership. And I think it's important to also know, again, who your partners are. Not every agent and bureau is created equal, as we know, and you have to find the right ones that are going to champion you. So if they're championing you, maybe you're going to do a different kind of a commission split with them. But as a standard, non-exclusives are 25%.
And 25%, folks, listen, 25% of 10K and getting paid is much more than 10K that you didn't get because you didn't get booked.
Yeah.
I'm just going to point that out.
Yeah, exactly. And it's building a relationship. And you also, Caitlin, you said it before, like you don't know, how much work is being done on the back end for you, how many times you're getting pitched potentially, in working with an agent the first time, and you might be on their radar and all of the work, you're never going to know how many times you get pitched. You'll know about the ones you get holds on and what comes through. But there's a real, value to building the relationships, and it's worth the commission.
Yeah, 100%. Amy, because you brought this up, this was on your question list anyway, but I think it was Kismet. Mm-hmm. What signals tell you a speaker is ready to raise their fee, and when they are, by how much?
Great question. And I don't know that I have the end all be all answer, but I do always have an opinion. So I will share that, and feel free, any of my other team members here, feel free to jump in. But I think, one of the obvious things is, obviously it's demand. I mean, a lot of times when we have a speaker reach out to us for management, it truly is because maybe they're, a very small team. Maybe it's them and maybe a VA or maybe a social media manager. So they typically have, very small teams and they need that support, also on the admin side. So not only fielding the leads, to Krista's, point, responding in 5 minutes, having that urgency, and then also managing the full like turnkey admin side of like what it takes from getting the contract to getting on the stage to following up to getting testimonials to getting video, all of those things. And as a manager, we support that. So I think, when your demand, is increasing, a lot of times there is need for that, and that also, can lead to a fee increase. And I think another thing is, your social proof. So when, you're really starting to add some impressive logos, to your website, you've been on the big stages, maybe now you have the speaker reel, that really showcases, that results piece of your reputation formula and those high visibility placements, your fee should reflect that and it should be consistent. And then I think the other thing is, a lot of times we look at, expanding IP. So maybe that's a book, maybe that's a course, maybe that's a podcast, maybe you've had some high profile podcast placement, something like that. So I think when you're raising the productization of your brand, I think that also, could warrant a fee increase. And I think that I would encourage speakers, if they're thinking about raising a fee, maybe do exactly what Marjana said and do a listening tour, get some feedback and look at other speakers who are like in the same space, who, maybe working with bureaus, maybe start as a range. I think that, that is very important. And so I don't know that there's a hard and fast number of what to increase, maybe 20, 30%, if you feel like that momentum is really strong, but I think it's definitely something to capitalize on when it happens.
All right. I mean, Amy, I'm going to stick with you.
May I
go ahead.
add,
Yes,
Caitlin,
Marjana, please do.
Just to add to think about it too, is that always think about if you're increasing your fee to the next level, who are you going to be up against, in terms of competition? I think that's something that people don't spend enough time thinking about. And that, again, lean into your communities, lean into other speakers to see and kind of understand who's out there at those other numbers and who your new competition is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Amy, what is one mistake that you wish speakers would stop making?
I just get one? No, I'm just kidding.
You can do 5. I'm going to listen. I'm over here taking notes.
I know you are all absolutely wonderful. So, and I would say, and I actually had this conversation with 2 of my speakers today because we were lucky enough to be on a webinar with a gentleman named Caleb Spittler, who I was introduced to through Krista, and he was talking to us about spinoff business. And so he was taking us through kind of his framework for, what he's seen be very successful for speakers. And he spent quite a bit of time talking about, that problem statement and the problem portion of your talk, spending, the first 8 to 12 minutes before moving into your expertise. And 2 of my speakers were they looked like they were about to cry. And I was like, what's going on? Because they are very performance driven. Like they like the dramatic stories. They've been through it. Like people's jaws are usually all on the floor. And so they were taking that as like, we were trying to remove the performance, of their talk, which is absolutely not what we were trying to do. But I do think sometimes speakers get too in the weeds with their own stories or with this kind of performative, aspect, which there is that. I mean, you want to be engaging, you want to be smiling, you want to have energy. That's all very important. But I think you have to really work on starting to position yourself as that subject matter expert. And that has to carry through every single thing that you do, and especially what you do on stage, where you are solving that problem, you are leaving the audience wanting more, and that's how you get spin-off business, but that's also how you make that shift from performance to really positioning yourself as that expert.
I love it. Mirjana, if you're looking at a speaker website, do not look at mine right now because I have things to change before anybody peeks. What deal killers do you see?
Too many pages, too many drop downs, too many ways of saying the one thing you want to say. I mean, I don't know I'd love to have this conversation with all my colleagues about what everyone's seeing. I've started to do for speakers who come to me that don't have a website, want to redo a website. I'm saying do a website calling card, which to me is just the one-page scroll down, getting the most essential things that you need. Now, I'm not an SEO expert. So if there are people that saying for SEO value, and I know that's all changed now because of AI too, but I mean, everybody is exhausted. Agents that I talk to, literally, like if you have everything on page one in a scroll, meaning what's that headline that we want to see about you? What's the main kind of topic you talk about? Scrolling into, again, that problem solving statement. What problems do you solve? Why you? What's the transformation that happens? And then your keynotes, 1 or 2 or 3. But don't give me a keynote. Don't give me 3 or 4 keynotes that are essentially the same keynote, but you're just creating a little nuance to it. And now I have to work to figure out, well, how's that one different from the other one? And you're just delivering the absolute same thing over and over, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the big ones. And if you don't have a video yet that's that sizzle reel that everybody thinks, that, well, it is something you need at some point. But at least start by having really just great content pieces. If that means it's only these talking head pieces where you could start sharing your thought leadership, that's one big thing that I would recommend anybody to look at in the new year that everybody can do. You can seriously just sit in front of your Zoom and capture some great content to put on your website alongside those keynotes and just share. What is it about? What problems do you solve? Just talk it through. And then share that on LinkedIn and have a little bit of a campaign, a marketing sprint, 3 weeks of just people just getting to know your background story, people getting to know, again, the problem you solve. So there's so many ways that you could then turn that content into something useful for your social.
That's amazing. Amy, this is something that I am in our private Facebook group for the NSA New York City chapter. I am constantly sharing things that other speakers are posting, sharing things that agents are posting, because I want the speakers in my community to be aware of what's going on and to get advice from the people that are doing it, have been there and have something to say. Are there any speakers that you're like, if you are not following this speaker, you are absolutely missing out?
So I did make a list because I wanted to be really intentional about this, because my whole life is speakers. And so there's so many that I admire and who are doing a great job. But I chose 4 that I'll share with you for very specific reasons.
Great.
And one of them is a gentleman I was at an event with last week. His name is Paul Epstein. And if you know Paul, he is a ball of energy. And I think what he has done so well is he has created the most clear positioning and like messaging discipline that I have seen. His trademark, his brand is Win Monday. He comes from the sports world, the NFL world. So his whole concept is if you win Monday, you've already won the week. If you win 4 Mondays, you've won the month, and that's compounded from there. But his messaging and his branding is so clear, down to he wears the Win Monday t-shirt on stage. Maybe we don't love that, but again, it's on brand, right? And so he has just done a phenomenal job of like choosing his lane, articulating his framework, and really just presenting himself as that expert without ever like diluting his brand. So I think he's a great example. Another one is a speaker that I worked with for many years. I don't work with her any longer, but her name is Ann Grady, and she is an expert on resilience, vulnerability. And I always give the example that if you were to look at credentials on paper, Ann Grady and Brene Brown are the same person. Granted, I bet every single person on this call knows who Brene Brown is, but I doubt, I hope some people know about Ann Grady on this call, but if you don't, that's why I'm giving you this example. But Ann has built a 20+ year speaking career. She consistently gets 20 to 25,000 a speech. She is, very, very successful. But I think there's people who, go viral or they become a New York Times bestselling author. She's about to release her 4th book. And so I think you can still be super, super successful and not necessarily be viral on social media or have a publisher. So I just always encourage speakers to again, stay in your lane, because you can have a ton of success if you go all in on that. And I think Ann has done an absolutely phenomenal job on that. And I got 2 more for you. One more is Erin King. I love her website, and she's very transparent about the monetary investment that she's made in her brand. She, overhauled it maybe 2 years ago, but between the last 2 years, she's really done just an entire overhaul of her brand. And I think she does a phenomenal job of creating that digital continuity. And her demo is just, it's high energy. I think she does a great job at, consistency across all of her branding. And then the last one I want to give actually is on Krista's roster, and it's Scott Tillema. And I mean, y'all, this man is, I mean, he is absolutely an expert at what he does, but he has positioned himself as the go-to expert in his online presence. It's not necessarily anything fancy, it is just clean and authoritative, and it's like deeply tied to his professional background. And he's just proof that, like, when that's branded and framed properly, props to Krista, that can translate into a really compelling speaking brand because he hasn't necessarily been on the professional circuit for very long. But I think the other great thing about Scott is, I mean, he is just so good with people, and he is an expert at getting himself in the right room to create spin and create referrals. And he's a great partner, for Krista, because that is a true collaboration, and he's out there working it and getting building that reputation and building that reach. But it's not necessarily in the way that is glamorous with like social media followers or anything like that, but he is doing it right and in his expertise, and he's being very successful.
That is amazing. I'm going to add one more to the list, Cassandra
Yes,
Worthy, who shares so
yes.
much good
I love
content.
her.
Yes, about like her message is clear. The things she talks about is in the speaking business are really
Yep.
helpful. I would
I
throw
mean,
that on the
again, it's
list.
it's like change enthusiasm. I mean,
Yeah,
hello, it's like that is her. Like when you hear her name, it's
it's
that.
changing. It's immediate.
It is that clear. So she is a great example and a beautiful website, beautiful
Yep.
branding.
Yep.
She's a great example. Thank you for adding that.
All right, folks, we have just short of 9 minutes left for our panel. So what I would like to do, since we got through our questions, is invite
I have some questions actually for you.
but I had a plan.
Okay, that's sure. There people have posted some questions in chat, which
Oh,
I
do you
thought we
want to do
might.
those now? I thought we were
Yeah.
going to wait till the
Well,
end.
let's just try because they're directed to these two people who are here on screen.
Okay, but there was also questions that were directed to the other people. And Zach has
Oh,
some things to say.
only Krista, and she's been answering them in chat.
Okay, fine.
I wanna honor the time and keep
Great,
moving our
go
space.
for it.
Okay, so I've been keeping track of these, and I think these are pretty quick questions. Amy, this one's for you. How do you find and select speakers to represent?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I hate to say it, I've been really lucky just that the right speakers have made their way to me. I've had a couple that found me on LinkedIn. I met a couple at live events. I've met some through the years. So I think it's ones that come to me super prepared, that they don't need a ton of finessing, and if they do need updates or refreshes or changes, they're willing to make that investment. And I think that's a really candid conversation that I have to have with any prospective speakers up front. Because again, setting those expectations, because I'm not a magician, I'm not the savior of your speaker business. I'm a partner. And if you can't book you, I can't book you either. So there has to be, again, that bare minimum of bookability. And I think that's Krista's presentation is just I'm taking notes because I have to get better about it when I am vetting speakers, because it's the only way for us to both be successful. And so to my previous point of offboarding for the speakers, I mean, another reason for that was just they just had a lack of bookability. I mean, to be honest, they just weren't stepping into it. And I said, I have to get out of the business as a manager of developing speakers and representing speakers. Right. And so I had to make that shift for myself. And I took my own advice. I completely redesigned my website back in August because it was confusing and it was not good. And so I hired a director of digital strategy to come on and lead the website rebrand. And I would say, I mean, our inbound leads have increased substantially just from like the clarity of the website. But we have to have that through all of our speakers' brands as well. So I think now that we've made the investment to grow our team, have a kick-ass website, like our speakers have to at least meet us there if they're interested in being on the roster.
Brilliant. All right, Mirjana, I got a question for you. When researching speaker managers and speaker bureaus, how do you know if there's a match? For example, for book publishing, when looking at agents or publishers, you can find authors they work with or books they publish so you can see if it's aligned. Is there a similar type of research we can do to find the right match for speaking?
I mean, I think right now the best way to look is for me, it would be personality, right? So I would look at socials of the bureaus. I would look at the bureaus, and then I would look them up on social and see what they're doing there. Try to look at and find their people and see if you connect with someone from their team. Like again, it's very personal. So you want to have that first touch, first personal connection. And you might find it might be the marketing person, even. It might not even be an agent there, but just someone that can sort of open a door, give you a little vantage point and see into that bureau or that management company. And again, start with just the simple curiosity and just wanting to get to know them. But I think that's the easiest place because all the bureau sites tend to look the same, as we know. Outside of, again, seeing the about page and the differentiator between the people, the best place you'll be able to find more if you're just doing research online is, for me, social. That's how I would do it.
That's a great start. I have last questions for Amy, and that is, what is the role of a speaker manager versus the role of the speaker? Do both do the same things? Are they creating synergy? Is it complementary? Where's that line?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I mean, it's completely collaborative. And I think, every management company does it a little bit differently. I purposely keep my roster on the smaller side because I want to be able to have kind of those one-on-one touch points. And today, we had a roster call with, everybody got to have access to an expert in our industry. And so that's another, perk of having a management team. And so I think it is just so much communication and collaboration. We also provide activity reports where they can see all of the outreach that's done for them month to month. They can also see any marketing campaigns that they're a part of, any time they're listed on social media, all of these things. And so I think their role is to, again, reciprocate that. So if we're creating social assets for you to promote your speaking, you also need to be creating social assets for you to be speaking. And so there's definitely, again, that balance of no ego and just the ability to collaborate. And I think because we are running a business, your speakers are also running a business. Your speaking business is a business. So you always have to be pouring in time and energy, into generating activity. And again, we are not responsible, for your speaking business. It's a collaboration.
I come from the world of authors and books, and I have to say the same is true for traditional publishers.
Hmm.
Like you can't get your book selected by a traditional publisher and then be like, I'm done doing social media.
Right.
I
Exactly.
don't do any
Exactly.
more of that stuff. That's somebody else's problem. Like whatever. Like
Yes, that's a
divas don't
great,
get paid,
great
okay?
example. Hmm. Yep.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you to everyone who's spoken so far. We've had such an incredible lineup, and I'm just shifting our gears. Part of my job is to make sure, as a ringleader here of this little circus, is that we have a lot of content, and we want to make sure we're moving it along. But what I'd like you to do right now, since we have a moment, is in the chat. Don't hit enter. Draft your top one or two takeaways, but don't hit enter. Just draft your top one or two takeaways that you've heard so far from all of our presenters in today's call. Like, is there a quote? Is there a stat? What scared you the most? Maybe. um, yeah. What's one thing? I'm going to give you just a few more seconds to draft something. And 3, 2, 1, hit enter. Let's see what's pumping up here. Find a champion, be crystal clear, relationships, clarity is key. I feel like your messages are coming across, friends. Well done. I'm seeing this. Now, for those of you who take copious notes, and you all know who you are, this is a chance for you to synthesize your notes and identify which are the salient messages that you're going to write in the LinkedIn post that you will be doing after this call. And for those of you who don't take a lot of notes, save the chat. Save the chat, because it's now a really valuable piece of content that you can use to write that LinkedIn post that you're going to write tomorrow to share all these nuggets with your speaker friends. Okay, now I'm going to bring Christina Butler back to the stage to move us forward to the next fireside chat. Welcome back.
Thank you, Robbie. And that was so cool to see that waterfall of things because it was so wide. We've talked about a lot and we have more to talk about. We right now are going to bring Krista back. Krista, this time you and I get to talk back and forth. I will not just be tossing it over to you. We get to interact this time. We
That
are
was an
also
awesome way
bringing
to jump in. It's just staring at the camera, waiting for
yes.
someone to talk.
Yes. We are also going to have Zach Nadler join us. And Zach is the co-founder and CEO of Vayner Speakers, where he's helped redefine modern talent partnerships. He has booked nearly $100 million in speaking engagements across close to 4,000 events. He also served as head of programming for VCon, curating more than 500 speakers. Before that, He was a top agent at CAA, representing everyone from Al Pacino to President Joe Biden. And tonight, he is here to talk about relationships and the mistakes that speakers might make when it comes to agents and bureaus. He's also going to tell us how it is. So thank you, Krista. Thank you, Zach. And Zach, we will go to you first. I know you've been chiming in on the chat throughout this time, and now it's your turn. We get to hear from you. So let's talk about topics and content and themes. What is rising right now, and what's really oversaturated?
Thanks for having me here, Christina.
Yes.
I think, there's a number of different things, but what I've noticed in the last two, maybe 2.5 years is this trend to actually going backwards, going back to some core areas that this whole industry is built on, right? Basic ideas like leadership, teamwork, culture, right? Customer service. However, the change has been that it's not just about talking about these things, it's about having a unique perspective. It's about being able to share something that only you can speak about. And I think the other thing we're noticing is that it's not just having a unique perspective, but it's having a unique perspective that's founded in execution, not just theory. So we are seeing quite a few people coming to us saying we need a leadership speaker, but as soon as you present someone who's just a generalist in leadership, they're turned off. But if there's someone who has a unique viewpoint, even if the group disagrees with the viewpoint, they're much more interested.
Okay. Zach, thank you. And I think all of us non-AI speakers just took a huge breath of relief because I thought for sure you were going to say AI, AI. So
No,
thank you for
yeah, I
sharing.
will say AI is a great topic, but it's I think been a little bit oversaturated because people who are not AI speakers are speaking about it, and I think that it's doing more harm than good.
Yes, and to go back to Krista's point, problem, not problems. So
Hmm.
there's that shift. So thank you, Zach. That's interesting there to see it's going backwards. And Krista, now let's switch over to talking about virtual and specifically fee-wise. How are those programs comparing to in-person? Uh, so fees for virtual compared to fees for in-person programs. What should we expect there?
I think this is a bit of a moving target, and I wouldn't mind some of the other experts to drop into the chat because, you know, when we had COVID and virtual really became the in thing to do, it was kind of, speakers. I knew speakers who would take anything to do virtual because they just needed to make money. The fees have crept up. I've kind of kept my speakers consistent at maybe two-thirds of the fee because they don't have to leave the house and also because it's it's a 1 day footprint on the calendar, if that. When you have to go out, there is a 2 day footprint, and dates on the calendar are my inventory to sell. So I don't mind giving a deal for virtual. I know some that are really bullish about doing virtual at full fee, but I see it, from my perspective. I think the human experience is really it's actually because of AI. It's become even more of a priority. In fact, there's a lot of studies that are saying that that's what 2026 is going to be about. It's going to be about like the micro meeting and the human connection and speakers being super accessible and therefore longer, but because they're shorter meetings. And so it's going to be much more intense, smaller meetings, and shorter meetings. So I don't really know if the value of virtual is going to withstand 2026, honestly, but I think it's always going to be a thing. So the fees, I think it's whatever you want to price it at, actually. That's what
Okay.
I say.
Guidelines, not rules. We
Yeah,
look at it
sure.
that way.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And you mentioned shorter, longer there, but Zach, I want to go back to you
Hmm.
to ask you about timing. What formats are booking and are companies asking for? 45-minute keynotes, 75-minute, more experience type programs, or multi-sessions?
Yeah, honestly, it's really refreshing to me because when I started in this industry, it was very much a cookie cutter. Like you had to give a 45 to 60-minute keynote. That was it. There was no alternative. And what I think I've seen is, when the Hollywood actors were no longer making $20 million in a movie, suddenly they were doing events. And they would do events, but they didn't have time to write a speech. So they would say, you can interview me. And suddenly people realized that's not so bad. That was pretty cool. And it's evolved. And so now we see all sorts of different formats. I do still think a 45-minute keynote is going to be the most booked thing we have every year. But I think we see now a variety on the spectrum. I have a customer who books 2 events a year and they book 3-hour interviews. That's not a traditional format. So it's all about what the group wants, but I also think that the variety is very nice. We have seen an uptick in workshops, which I think is fascinating because they're very difficult to book, they're very difficult to sell. But we have seen that the reality is people want something experiential. They want something that they're going to learn from. And so there's actually a world where 45-minute keynotes that have some sort of experience is really the perfect world, right? I have a client who goes out with a DJ on stage. Now, I'm not telling you to go find a DJ, but if that works, amazing. We have another client who's a mentalist, but he does speaking and he uses mentalism as a way of lifting it up. So I think that when you're able to instill something that's authentic to you, but that is more engaging than just speaking, there's a nice variety for an event planner who is constantly looking at reel after reel of just lecturer. However, that old lecturer, I think, is kind of a past world. We don't see very much success for lecturers, though there is still a market for them. I would say most people are looking for something a little more modern, a little more up to date. And I often suggest to groups who ask us for 60 minutes or longer sessions to do a hybrid format where, there's natural studies out there that, 52, 53 minutes, right around then, if you're hearing just one voice, you are going to tune out. So we always suggest cap it at 45 minutes. But if you want to do a longer session, bring someone out on stage and convert it to a moderated conversation, a fireside chat afterwards, and you can still open it up to Q&A afterwards, like audience Q&A. So if a group has 2 hours on stage, that's a long time, but there's ways of doing it that are still going to be engaging for the audience and make sure that it's not all on the speaker to figure out how do I do two 45-minute talks because they want 90 minutes.
Right. There has to be some flexibility and cooperation there. I want to ask about what bureaus wish speakers did in the days leading up to an event, 90 days, 30 days, 7 days. And I want to add to that question, not only what do the bureaus want speakers to do, but do they want speakers to be communicating with audiences ahead of time?
That's a great question. I'll answer the second part first. I think it's actually a really cool idea. I think groups really like that, but it has to be natural. It has to be engaging. If you're going to jump into the LinkedIn comments on the company post, if you're going to jump into a group because it's an association or something like that, and you want to learn more about the industry, that's never a bad thing. Now, don't give away what you're going to talk about in the speech, but if you're asking questions, engaging, then when you're at a cocktail reception or you're on site, it allows you a little more opportunity to kind of understand the people you're talking to. In terms of the lead up to the event itself, I think it's less about what they do, and I actually think it's more about what you don't do. I think that you have to recognize, and I think Chris, you were the one who said this earlier, or if not you, it was someone else who mentioned like, event planners have a whole lot going on. And I think the reality is that sometimes speakers think that like they want to just be there and do everything. Sometimes event planners just don't want to hear from you. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let them do what they need to do, but be available for them. So I think that you always want to say, hey, there's great time to do check-ins. You have to kind of feel it out. Is it 60 days? Is it 30 days? Let them know, hey, I have everything all set. I appreciate we had the pre-call. Here are my slides or AV needs in advance, right? I'm ready to go. Check in when you land. I'm hearing this more and more. Event planners want to hear, I've landed. I'm at the hotel. They want to just feel it's a warm, cookie right on your pillow there. Like it's just a way for them to understand, like, okay, it's one less thing to worry about. But I started this business. I actually used to run events and I was like, I hate this. I can't do it. I'm out. But I think what I learned is that event planners are going to have headaches. It is a foregone conclusion. Every event will have headaches. I try to make sure that the speaker is one less headache. And so sometimes that is the speaker offering different things throughout the course of the opportunity coming together. But other times it's the speaker just saying, hey, I'm here 15 minutes before you ask me to get here because just know that I'm out of your hair. Everything you can do, and I'll just be here ready when you call on me.
Nice. Be there and be ready. We heard Kate say earlier, like top 5 jobs, event planner for burnout. So
Yeah.
Zach, exactly what you said there. Let's try and help them feel better about that. Krista, our last question, our last formal question, I should say, and here's a reminder that we will have a couple of minutes that Robbie will facilitate some Q&A. So if you have been sitting on a question for the past 75 minutes or so. Now is the time to go over, jump in chat, write question, clearly put your question in there, and we'll be able to get to some of them in a minute. But Krista, the last formal question for you. And I hate to end this on a negative note, but I also feel like we're here for a reason. What do buyers complain about most post-event, and how can we prevent it? What can we not do?
Well, I would say that I have to say I don't know, and I'll tell you why, because they don't tell us, they tell each other. And that's terrifying because that will kill a speaker's business. So I would think that the things that get in a speaker's head that makes the speaker think that the event is about them are going to be the same things that get on a planner's nerves. So I dropped in the chat that the standing ovation is not for the speaker, it's for the event planner that put their neck on the line to hire them. You know what Zach was saying about the you know, anyway, you were just saying it. But anyway, the event planners are busy and maybe they don't want to hear from you, but maybe they do. So a couple things on that that sprang to mind. Front load everything into the contract so that expectations can be set and there are no surprises. Event planners are walking checklists. They want to check things off. And if they have to ask you twice for something, you've already lost. So you cannot be that person that they have to chase the information from. And the last thing I'll say about that is that, you know, if an event planner complaining about you to someone or to you or someone else or to a manager or agent, that would be a job review, right? That would be some kind of a job review. So what I want every speaker on the call to understand and tell their friends is that you are hired for a job. This is your job. And you show up to work on time or early. You make your boss happy. You make sure to fill everything in there. And if you would like to come back and work again the next year for this company, you really have to knock it out of the park. So this is your job. You're getting paid handsomely to do it. So make sure that you please your boss and everybody's happy.
And maybe bring them some Tylenol or Advil because
That
we know they're
doesn't
going to
hurt.
have headaches.
Or that warm cookie. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just
Actual
be
warm cookie.
gracious, right? But be thankful.
Yes. Be thankful. Well, we are thankful to you, Zach, Krista. Thank you to our panelists earlier and Nicole. Thank you for your conversation tonight. And Robbie, I know that you have been moderating the chat and pulling out some questions. So why don't we jump into those?
Sounds good. And I actually want to start by bringing Nicole back up. Nicole, when they were talking about formats, you raised your hand. So this is your chance. Like, what's your 2 cents on all that was just being talked about?
Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt Zach. So everything Zach said, but I wanted to also say that I'm actually getting calls about like a TED Talk style talks, anywhere from 16 to 20 minutes.
Mm.
And for companies that are, having all day meetings, they're just trying to jam something in, something inspirational, something, that their team can, take away with. So that's another format that that I'm getting questions about. So if you don't have that format, I think you should probably put that together so that when that question comes in, you have that available.
And
Well,
put it
that
on
Can
your
I
actually,
just throw something in there too?
yeah, goes ahead, Zach.
So I actually love that, Nicole, because I get that request all the time.
Mm.
And when somebody says we want a TED style talk, I ask, so do you want it to be 18 minutes or less? And they say, no, we want a 45-minute talk. So then I ask, what do you want then? Because
Right.
none of what you're telling me you want is actually TED Talk. And I think it's becoming like Xerox is the copy machine, right? But it's a brand. And I think people are conflating these ideas. And look, I have a lot of empathy for people who just like they didn't mean it that way. But at the same time, it just always drives me nuts because I'm like, no. TED Talks are just short and they're ideas that matter. Like that is their thing, and that is not what you want.
Oh, I like the clarity. I think we keep talking about this. Like just because they say like we want a
Yes.
TED style talk, don't go write an 18-minute talk. Like do a follow-up question.
Yes.
I want to ask Krista, talked about these micro meetings. So let's clarify what that was. And then I want to know what Krista and Nicole think about fees for these style of meetings. Like how do we think about the fee structure if it's that small? I mean, it's much shorter. Can you give me 2 hours and I could do a lot? You ask me to do that in like 12 minutes. I will spend 9 months working on it. Like it is so much more work. But Krista, what is a micro meeting?
Well, this is kind of a new concept. I think maybe it's not so new, but it's definitely picking up steam. So, just a little story time for you. So, Jennifer Lear, who is the current president of the International Association of Speakers Bureaus, she sent me a text maybe a week and a half ago and said, "Hey, my gut is telling me that micro meetings are going to be a thing in all of this mad scientist research you do. Can you see if you can figure anything out about this?" So, and this is like an evening text that I get from her. So then I'm like, yeah, sure, babe, whatever. Yeah. So the next morning I get an email from Skift Meetings, who is, they're trend spotting, they do the whole thing, saying like micro meetings are the trend for 2026. I'm like, what is your intuition? Go buy a lottery ticket because that is what it is. So from my understanding is that it is shorter and smaller in attendance. So again, upping the human element, less of the big stage, more of the small stage, shorter sessions. And I did see in the chat someone said I get asked for 90 minutes a lot. That could, I mean, that very well could be. I think it's just whatever, like Zach said, it's whatever length is going to best suit the group and the audience, because maybe it's highly interactive or they want that info dump. They just need it and they want it for what they're doing. But that's everything I know about micro meetings. So, and it's I can fit it in a thimble what I know about them. So there you have it.
But you've introduced the concept here, so I'll be on the
Yeah,
lookout for that.
yeah. Keep an eye
And
out.
is the pricing dissimilar? Like, do you just have like a day rate kind of in mind? Like you were talking about how when people are traveling, like it's 2 days in their calendar. Does it matter whether it's a short day or a longer presentation? How do we factor in also, are they staying for drinks? Are they doing a lunch? You know what I mean? Like, is that whole day sort of factored into it?
Well,
Well, I can tell you when I'm talking to folks, my thoughts on fees are your time is your time. So if you're going to be at a location, whether it's for having a 15-minute talk or an hour talk, the speaker has to take the entire day to be there. And so my initial conversation is, this is their fee, for, an hour and a half or so, plus, maybe that 30 minutes of networking and whatever. But I start there. And then if the client says, you know what, I want to cut that down, I think we need to spend less money, then I'll go back and forth and do a little bit of negotiation and then also involve the speaker so that they're comfortable, with the rate. I think also just adding a little bit more value so that the client can buy books or do some other things to make it really worthwhile for the speaker to be there on site. Like I said, whether it's 15 minutes or an hour and a half. So I think there needs to be some negotiation, and I'm sure there's different perspectives on it, but I'm a big believer in you're getting the investment of what the speaker has done and learned over the past several years. And even though they're squeezing it into a short amount of time, that's still that valuable time with the speaker.
I will say, as a new speaker, I remember I got my slot crunched last minute, and I just talked 3 times as fast. So you have to be prepared. You have to have actually a shorter talk in your
Yeah.
back pocket for when that happens, because inevitably it will. Zach, I wanted to ask you a question about crossover speakers, people who are maybe more focused on like a youth segment, college, and now they're shifting to corporate. Is there a bias? Is there a smooth way to do that transition? What have you experienced?
Well, I think it's less about who the kind of focused audience is and more about what you're talking about. So I get a lot of people coming to me and saying they're looking for representation and they love speaking to high schools, right? They love talking to nonprofits. And I'm wondering then what they are expecting because ultimately that's wonderful. I have no problem with that. But I don't know a lot of high school students who pay significant dollars for speakers, right? And I don't know a lot of schools who just have tons of extra budget lying around to give to speakers as opposed to school supplies. So I think that there's definitely an opportunity, and I don't have any problem with that, but I think it's more about what's the message. Now, sometimes there are great messages that align for a group of high school students, a nonprofit, and a group of real estate agents. But more often than not, the message is going to be much more applicable to professionals, to people who are working day in and day out and are doing something where teamwork isn't like what happens between 3 and 5 o'clock on a weekday, right? But actually what happens between 9 and 5, Monday to Friday, all year. So I think it's less about who your target audience is, Although I do think it's helpful to have like an avatar for who you're talking to, but I think it's more about making sure that your topic, your theme makes sense. And then if you want to go into a new area, try and figure out not this is the talk for this group, but understand innately how it's going to be translated because the same message shouldn't be applicable to two different audiences without some contextualization.
I appreciate all of you so much. I have two really kind of quick things. One, maybe I'll ask Amy this question. Are we supposed to put all these different formats, or do we just make it clear on our website that we are flexible? Like, how do we communicate that we're open to doing something other than what people think of as maybe a standard format? Maybe we're open to experiential, interactive. Like, how do we let that be known?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question. And I saw Zach respond to a comment, and I agree that I think if you put if you specify too much, but maybe you leave something off and that's the format somebody's looking for, that may prevent them from inquiring. So I don't think there's anything wrong with getting specific, but I think the main thing your website should do is like have someone take action. So like the more clear you can be and have someone take action to get in touch with you, get them on the phone. I mean, I started in sales in this business in 2008. So we didn't have YouTube. We pitched speaker reels from DVDs. Like all we had was the phone and getting people to tell us what they needed, right? And so that's still how I operate. You know, I could easily send a YouTube video link or I could send whatever to a client, whatever they're asking for, but to be able to get them on the phone and talk through what they really need, that's how you
Mhm.
that's how you close a deal, right? Not by trying to list every single possible thing you could do on your website, like get people on the phone. So create that immediacy with what you have on your site and then understand what they really need and then, reverse engineer your pitch based on that.
This
And
has been
Robbie, if
amazing.
I
Yeah,
may just add
Rosanna,
to
go
that, I
ahead.
mean, I don't see enough people doing this, but I think just again, a simple video, recording yourself talking about what you speak on. These are
Mhm.
things that you could apply to your website and have on that homepage. In addition, again, to that sizzle reel and all of that, it's just warm and welcoming, and you're just letting people know, give me a call and I'll share. But here are some of the ways in which I do things differently and how I show up for my audiences.
Yeah,
Something
that
to add
personal
that may
human
be
piece.
specific.
Yeah,
And I
Krista, go
want to
ahead.
squeeze this in here. This is something I got this idea from a speaker, and I can't remember who it was. I want to say I can see her face. Anyway, she sings during her presentation. She was an Impact 11 lady. Go. Anyway, do you know who it is, Marjana? She
No,
did.
she sings.
I think you're working with her.
Allison?
Rachel Druckenmiller?
Yes,
Rachel?
Rachel.
Mhm.
She and I talked maybe a year ago. And I went, I've always thought that was a good idea. She has drop downs on her website, like she has an industry tab and she has presentations for or how she can bring value to different industries, which I think is a brilliant way of niching with being very specific without you know what I'm saying, staying general but also being specific.
Is that Crystal Washington?
It's
No,
Rachel Druckenmiller.
Oh,
Rachel Druckenmiller. Yeah. Now
Would you
Crystal might
drop
be
her
doing
name
it.
into the chat for us? Thank you,
Oh,
Marjana.
yeah.
Now I hope it's on our website. I mean, she said she was going to do it. So, but it sparked me into thinking about niches and how it's hard to, like, I said you've got to, it's like Win Monday, you got to be the one thing, but you got to be everything, but you got to be one thing, but you got to be everything. So that I thought was a really nice way to actually bring it all together and also be specific and stay general but be specific. So I hope
I,
that,
This is
yeah.
amazing. All
I
right.
fully agree with this. I just have to say, I actually think, and I'm looking at my screen, but I combine kind of what Marjana said with what Krista said. I think you have to say, here's my topic, here's what I talk about. This is what I own, right? And a sizzle reel shows people, and I think sizzle reels now are much shorter than they used to be, show people who you are, what you do, and what you talk about, but then use other videos to that aren't from the same like main talk of your sizzle reel to show people A, you've been on multiple stages, and B, some of the stories you tell. And then I find customers will then see and say, oh, like, let me watch this sizzle reel. Great, this person can do it. Now let me watch this other video to see what else they talk about. And I'm going to draw my own conclusions about, oh, maybe they can talk about this, or that would be really useful for us. And it gets them engaging with you without you having to be there to engage with.
I want you all on speed dial. So expect to hear from me tomorrow. Listen, this is incredible. We're at time. I just want to say a huge thank you to just everyone who pulled this together behind the scenes. This was a group effort, a great topic. I know that this is going to be requested because, things are moving at the speed of light, and I have a feeling a year from now we're going to do this all over again because Chris is going to tell us there's been a change. Let's see if the predictions from tonight hold true. In the chat, we've already shared upcoming events for NSA Philadelphia and NSA New York City. I wanted to share, I've got some links here to drop in for our speakers. So this is all the ways that you can check them out as well. Please do save the chat. There's some really valuable insights. And speaking of which, share your own right now. I know you're all going to say thank you, but do us a favor and be really specific about what you're thanking us for. If there's someone who said something in the chat or on a screen, you can acknowledge them for their little bit of wisdom and share it here so that we all can benefit from it. If you were taking lots of notes, take a moment to share one or two of your top takeaways in chat. And if you weren't taking notes, take note of what's being said in chat. And I really am going to be looking for some LinkedIn posts tomorrow. I know we have some people like Jeff, who's in the room, who always does a wrap up, but we could do more of those kinds of things to spread the message. These programs are really important, and we want to make sure that speakers know that we're here to support them. Thank you, everybody, so much. I want to thank those who are watching the replay, and have a great night.